In this next video, we will create the following 3 customized blocks using additional tools and some advanced features of the tools we've already covered. Each of the blocks are made for a 10 by 10 by 10 block and customized as such. Let's start by creating a new file, and as soon as you open up the new file, let's save the file. In this case, we want to make sure we save it to our Sketchup folder, so we're going to click the desktop and Sketchup, making sure that you have the desktop up here. Open your Sketchup folder, and we'll name this last name underscore tools 2. That'll be your file name. You'll save it so that you have it when you start, and you should see the file name up here. Make sure that your toolbars are on the left hand side here. You have your view toolbar here, and you have your styles toolbar over this way. If you do not see your default tray, it is most likely unpinned, so that'll auto hide whenever you mouse over it. If you wish to pin it, you can. For this case, we're going to leave it auto hid because we actually do not need to see any of the features for this particular drawing. I'm going to start by moving with our move tool our avatar over here to the corner. I'm going to then take my rectangle tool, click once in a center point, slowly move up to the right and type in feet, comma 10 feet. Remember now, when you're using a rectangle, you need to put a comma in between the 10 feet for each of the 2 measurements. And we'll take our push-pull tool. I'll use P, my keyboard shortcut. Click once, let go of my mouse, start moving in the direction that we want the project to go, and press enter, giving us our 10 by 10 block. The first new tool we're going to look at is the offset tool. The offset tool, when brought over and moused onto a face, allows you to create in this case, a square from the edge equal from all the sides. So I clicked once on the face and I'm moving in to get this shape. I can define the shape by typing in a number. As you see in the bottom right hand corner, the distance window pops up. Let's just type in 1 foot, enter. Now, if you go to make additional offsets at 1 foot, you can do this an easier way than entering a number. The SketchUp program remembers the last value for the tool that you used. So if I come into the space where I want the offset to take place, if I double click quickly, I can make an offset the same distance, which was 1 foot, as the previous one. If for some reason I click off and I change that offset, now I'm going to have to come back in and just manually put it in as 1 foot, enter. Now, sometimes you want to offset from only a couple faces and not all of them. So let's just say I wanted to offset from these top 3 faces. I would get my select tool or press space and carefully select each one of the edges. Once those 3 edges are selected, carefully zoom in so you can make sure you got them all. You take your offset tool, and now you can offset just from those 3 edges. In this case, I actually want the full offset, so I'm going to press Ctrl Z to undo that so that I'm left with the 3 faces you see. Getting our push-pull tool, you know that you can push an object and pull it out, which is an additive method of modeling. We're adding material to this particular object. But we can also subtract it too. So if I click once, let go, so that I can move the shape freely without having to touch the mouse button, I'm going to start the extrusion into the block. Once I start it in just a little bit, now the extrusion knows it wants to go that way as I define the distance. So I'm going to move it in and just press 1 foot, enter. Now, if I do this with the rest of them, I can double click the mouse and I'll get a 1 foot push-pull. Should go back the same way. Okay, went back once, double click again, and now that's back 2. 1, 2, 3. And if the double click isn't working, just enter the proper distance. This would be a 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot, and we'll click this and start moving it back for 4 feet. And there you get your offset block, equal distant 1 foot back for each of the squares till you get all the way back to 4. Let's press our scroll button down and orbit around to the top of the block. Now I want to draw on the top of the block, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to press the view button that shows me top down, so I'm looking directly over the top of the block. Now I want to draw with my Polygon tool from directly the center of the block. If I get my Polygon tool here, I can infer by mousing over an edge, endpoint, another endpoint, carefully moving down, and I should be able to snap to the center where the green and the red lines intersect. And when I click and start moving up, you'll see I have a shape here, which I will enter 3 feet as such. The other way you could find the center point is you could also take your tape measure tool and snap the midpoint. Remember, when you want to use the tape measure tool, never grab the edges or the midpoint. You always want to grab a red spot on the line and begin to move it over to the center point, and you should have that exact shape you see right there in the center. Now let's go back with my eraser tool and just erase this shape real quick. I will look down at the top view, because the Polygon tool can create a shape from numerous sides. So if I click on it right now and you look down here in your bottom right hand window, you see it says 6 sides, which will give us a 6-sided shape. If you press 3 sides, if you just press the number 3 and press enter, it'll change to a triangle. 10 sides, enter, it'll change into a 10-sided shape. If you don't see the sides window, just go back and deactivate the tool and activate it again. I'll leave mine at 10 sides, and I'm going to click the center point, and as I move up, I want to make sure to keep the point that I'm pulling up on this guideline straight up, and keep what's called an inscribed radius of 3 feet, and that just means the dotted line that goes around the circle at each of those points is 3 feet all the way around. Once you have your 10-sided shape, let's take our push-pull tool and go down for 1 foot. And now you can see these guidelines are kind of in the way. We really don't want them anymore because we're no longer snapping to this top face. You can either erase them one by one with the eraser tool, or go back and just say edit and delete guides, which is more useful when you have a lot of different guidelines and a lot of different parts of your drawing. Look down here on the top again, and you see how this shape is now not exactly flat. You're looking at a perspective view so that you can tell there's some depth there. If I change my camera view to parallel, it would appear perfectly flat, even though there is indeed depth there. So we're going to keep it as perspective, and let's take our polygon, and it should still be set to 10, and let's see if we can't find that center again by inferring from one point here to the other point here, and we'll come straight up for 2 feet, and then let's move this point up for 2 feet. And that's how you use your orbit tool, tape measure tool, polygon tool, and negative push-pull, which will complete these 2 sides of this block. With the first 2 sides complete, let's orbit around until we get a nice flat look at this side. On this side, I want to lay out a couple circles so that it looks like the side of a dice with 3 circles on it. So to do this, we're going to need to put a circle in the middle, but we're also going to put circles from each corners that line up all the way through. There are a couple different ways to do this. We need points to snap to, so what we can do is we can take our pencil tool and move it all the way across, and we can get our circle tool. Now our circle tool, when you first select it, also has a number of sides. 24 sides being the default value, in which if you pull it off, you could see how it's not very smooth on the surface. There's only 24 sides that make up the entire surface. The more sides you have, the more clear and smooth the circle will be. Sometimes there's a limit to the amount of sides you can have, but for this case, I'm going to type in 100 when the bottom right corner still says sides. And now, when I pull off my rectangle, I have a circle that's a lot smoother. So I can find my midpoint of this one line, click, drag straight up, and let's use a radius, as circles are measured in radius, of 1. And that'll give me my circle there. The problem is I have no place to know where to put my next circle to make this even. I have no guide. So let's press Control Z. And now instead of drawing on this circle, I want you to select the line. Once it is selected, carefully move up to the line and right click and press Divide. Dividing into segments gives you different points that you can snap to. So as I move my mouse, the number of line segments changes to 2 line segments, 3 line segments, and so on and so forth. In order to get the proper alignment, we want to use 4 line segments, and we'll put a circle at each one of the red dots. So I would type in or just get the line to be at 4, and then you can press Enter. And if you click on the line slowly, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4 line segments. Another way we could see where these lines are is to take our tape measure tool and find the green dot, as green dots represent the end point of a line or 2 lines combined. So this end point represents where the first square circle will be. We'll do another one, which should be dead center, and the last one here. These intersection points are now where you'll take your circle with 100 sides, click once, move straight up for a radius of 1. Now let's go back with our eraser tool and erase carefully the lines. And we're going to pull these back in for 0.5 feet. I should just be able to double click, and it's good to go. With these 3 sides of the bricks completed, we will now first get rid of our avatar. We don't need them anymore. And second, we're going to color the different faces that you see. So if you can move over here to your default tray. Remember, if you don't see your default tray over here, you can go up to the window, default tray, and click on show tray. We'll bring it back. And I'm going to click on my materials window. If for some reason the materials window isn't here, go back up to default tray, and every check you see will be inside of the default tray. So if you don't see it, you can just check mark it there and you'll see it. I'm going to pin my tray while I'm working on it. And you can now color this block whatever color you want. The only thing you can't do is to use really dark colors, because if you use dark colors, especially on the inner pieces, it's very difficult to see what exactly you did when I'm evaluating the project. So stick to lighter colors so that you can see the detail and the depth of each of the faces, or do an alternation color, which really helps it to stand out. It doesn't matter what colors you use as long as each surface of the block is colored with one of the colors in the color palette. Once you've colored the first block, you want to get your block into a view where you can see all the sides of it so we can export the image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it just slightly this way so I can see the top, sides, and then you're going to press the zoom extents, which makes it as large as possible within your view. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to save a copy of this. Now you should have already saved the file as last name _ tools 2, but now we're going to export an image which will be turned in through Google Classroom. So you're going to go to 2D graphic under export, and here again make sure that you're in your Sketchup file. So if you don't see it, press the desktop to the left and then enter your Sketchup file, and you'll name your last name _ tools 2, put 0.1 because you'll be exporting more drawings. So it's King Tools 2.1, and you can then export. With the first block created, we're going to show you a way to copy objects in multiple ways at a time. So I'm going to select this whole object by, with my select tool, dragging a box over the entire block. I'm going to get my move tool, and I'm going to move this down, and I want it to be 5 feet apart from this one, so this is 10, so we'll put 15 feet, enter. Now you notice my block is still selected because right now the tool is still activated. If you click off or click anything or another toolbar or click another button, the tool will deactivate. With the tool active, we can use another feature that gives us multiple blocks at the same time. So if after you drop this into place, press X. Oops, see, mine didn't work. I'm going to go back. I pressed another button. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to delete this. I'm going to select the whole block. I'm going to move it. I'm going to say 15 feet, enter. And now in the distance window in the bottom right hand corner, you see it says 15 feet. I'm going to press X 5, which stands for times 5. If you enter that into this distance window and press return or enter, you can duplicate that block as many times as you put in. So we put in 5, so it created 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more from what we already had. Now the tool is active still. So if I press X10, I can change the number again, giving me as many of these as I want. Don't put too many in there or your program will freeze because it's a lot of information to be crushing. There's X5, and I can continue to as many of these as I want, which is nice if you need to copy multiple objects multiple times, moving up, moving any way, again up 15 feet, enter, and then let's put times 5. And it might take a second depending on how. There we go. So again, don't do too many because you may end up crashing the program like I just came close to doing, but that's one way to copy them. I'm going to press Control Z till I get back to my original block and show you one more way to do that. I'm going to get the Move tool, press Control, and move it down about 100 feet. You can see the distance in the bottom right hand window. When I click, the tool is again still active, but instead of pressing X to multiply the shape, I'm going to press backslash, which is located on the bottom right hand of your keyboard by the Shift key, and now I'm going to enter 5 and press enter. What that does is that takes 5 blocks and spaces them equidistant between each of them all the way across. So this distance is the same by doing that. Useful in different parts of the program. If I don't like that, I can keep changing the number until I get the amount I want. Between these two features is very useful in different parts of the program as you see them. So make sure you get them divided backwards, and then we can press Control Z and get back to our shape. We're going to create another block the same size, but I want to make it again 5 feet apart and separate from this particular block. So the easiest way to do that is to take my newly used tape measure tool, to click and move down and enter a distance of 5 feet. I now have a guideline that goes all the way back to the vanishing point. I'll take my rectangle tool, and I actually have to infer because I can't snap to the axis line. So I'm going to infer from there to the dimension line and enter 10 feet, comma 10 feet, and go up, click, move up, and I'll infer this to the top to make this 10 by 10 by 10 like you see here. This next block we're going to turn again. I'll erase that guideline, and we're going to use an arc tool. The arc tool, there are a couple of them located on your toolbar over here. We're going to get the arc tool that draws an arc from 2 points. So if I draw a line from here to here, click once, click twice, and then I could start moving up. Now you see that also this arc is made up of sides too, and those sides aren't the smoothest because I'm using a small amount of sides. So let's go back and re-click the arc tool, and you'll see as number of sides here. Let's see if we can change that number to 50 and then create that arc, and you can see how much smoother it is. And we actually want to go up till 2 feet, so I'll enter 2 feet, and there's your arc. Orbit around to the side with your push-pull tool, push-pull back, and you can infer by simply snapping to the edge here, or if you want to rotate all the way around and touch this back face, you can, but we're just going to click right there. Now let's take our dimension tool and move from the side, and we don't want to stop at the midpoint, which is 5. Let's go up to about 7 feet, and we'll create our midline or dimension line right at that spot. I'm going to use dimension line again from the left edge, moving over slowly till I get to, let's do 2.5 feet, 2.5 feet, enter, and do the same thing over from this side, 2.5 feet, enter. You'll see we have these two intersection points, and we're going to use another tool, the arc tool, which draws arcs from the center and 2 points. So instead of drawing from one side to the other side, we can actually pick a point where we want to, as for the center point of our arc, and go from there. So I'm going to come over to 1 foot, enter. And once I've entered that, I can now draw up and over to the other side, creating the arc you see there. Let's try that again with the other one. We're going to click once, move along our line. I'm going to enter 1 foot, and then roll that arc over to the other side. Take your pencil tool, connect the bottoms, and then push-pull them back. Now, I can click and start moving forward, or start moving back, and I'm just going to enter 10 feet because I know that the block is 10 feet thick, so if I enter a distance of 10, that should take me all the way out to the back. And then once again, I could double click, and it should be the same measurement as before, or I can just click, move back 10 feet. Alright, let's once again take another dimension line up from the bottom, and this one, let's come up 3.5 feet, enter. And we want to use, once again, our pencil tool to connect our 2 lines, and then use our 2-point arc tool like we did before, making sure you have 50 sides. Click once, click twice, and you can see here I'm moving out along the green axis, not down. An easy way to get this correct is to orbit back around so you're only looking at it in 1 dimension or 2 dimensions, and you can move this down to 2.5 feet, like you see here. And I want you to take your offset tool and offset for 6 inches, so it's 6 quotation marks, which is the distance, which is the sign for inches. As you see there, the quotation mark is for inches, the apostrophe is for feet. So there you have that. Let's take our mouth and move back for 1 foot or 1 apostrophe. Move out here for 1/2 foot or 6 inches. And now let's go back up to our arcs up here, and let's just select the top arc like we did before, and we're going to kind of move that arc up and out as you see here. Let's do that for a distance of 4 inches. And you can see that it should have still snapped to the line. Let's connect, connect. Do the same thing over here. Carefully select the arc. I'm going to double click. It remembers that it was 4 inches, so it drew it for me automatically. Connect your lines and get your push-pull tool and infer out the same distance here. And then let's go back and get our Polygon tool, and we'll give this, let's say, 6 sides this time. So I'm going to press 6, enter, in the bottom right hand corner it'll show up. And then I'll infer from the midpoint at the top midpoint over here. Make my 6-sided figure. I'll make that 6 inches or 6 quotation marks. And we will bring this out 2 inches as you see here. Let's now get rid of our guidelines. And let's take our rectangle tool, and starting up here in the corner, let's move down, and you can see the distance in the bottom right hand corner. It's going to be 10 for the first number, and we want to make this 10 feet, comma, 6 inches or 6 quotation marks. Alright, let's take this, move it out for 6 inches or 6 quotation marks. Oops, 6 feet. Now the nice thing about that is I put in 6 inches. If you don't deactivate the tool, you can press 6 feet right away and it'll automatically change to the size you want. And again, let's change that one more time. Let's make that 5 feet. So it's just a little bit smaller. Looking down across the top of it with our arc tool, we're going to move up for 1 foot. And use our arc in the center. And finally use your push-pull tool to move each face down. Once you have finished creating the second block, let's go ahead and color it. With your block colored, let's hide the tray. Again, good angle so we could see the face like this orientation. We're going to press our zoom extent so we zoom in nice and tight. And you're going to go to File, Export 2D Graphic, and you're going to name this King, sorry, last name, Tools 2, and it'll be point 2. And you should see the other file that you saved with the same file name in your folder already. If you didn't save it in the same folder, make sure you locate it where you did save it. Again, your Sketchup folder on your desktop, and export it. At this time, you should also go in File, Save Your Program, so that you don't lose any work that you've already done. The last block we're going to create is again a 10 by 10 block spaced 5 feet from the others. With my tape measure tool, I'm going to click, carefully move down, type in 5, apostrophe, and make my block again, making sure you're inferring from the edge of the second block 10 feet, comma, 10 feet, enter. Push pull up to 10 and erase my guideline. Then what I want to do is turn the drawing so I'm looking directly at the front of it. And I'm going to get my rectangle tool, and I'll make sure I'm inside of this white face. And I'm just going to click, drag down, rectangle approximately this size. And if I look in the bottom right corner, it says 9 feet 3/4 of an inch by 3 feet 2 3/16 of an inch. I don't need to be that detailed, so I'm just going to put 8 feet by 3 feet. So 8, apostrophe, comma, 3 feet, enter. Now I want this to sit on the bottom of the block, so I'm going to get my select tool, carefully double click inside of the rectangle, press M to get my move tool, and with this rectangle selected, I'm going to find the midpoint at the bottom with the cyan dot. I'm going to click and I'm going to move it until I see the cyan dot at the bottom there, and that will give me my door. Alright, now for this next part, let's zoom in close to the bottom. And what we want to do is with our rectangle tool, click and drag a rectangle off from this line, but you may have to orbit down so you're looking down on top of it. Otherwise it's difficult to get the proper way to bring it out. It wants to go down. So if I just orbit down a little bit like this, I'm going to make one block like this, and you can approximate the sizes. You don't have to make them exactly the size. Just put two rectangles next to one another that look like that. Once you're done, you can delete the middle. Oops. Delete the line. And now, what we're going to do is called using the Follow Me tool, which is going to take this L shape, or the profile, and we're going to use this line as a path to wrap it all the way around. So the first thing we have to do is to select the path that this L shape piece is going to follow. I want it to follow this door, so I'm going to select this line, hold shift again, so that only these three lines are selected. Once they're selected, I'm going to get the Follow Me tool over here from the toolbar. When I select it, the lines will unselect, but don't worry. Come back over, press the L, and you will have created that profile shape up and around again. Again, to do that, get your shift or your select tool, shift, hold shift again, Follow Me tool, and wrap it. Let's try that again on this side. Let's go ahead and get our Polygon tool, which is still set at 6 sides, which is fine. If not, type in 6 and press enter. And I'm going to infer from the top and the side. And once I get my midpoint, I'm going to click and move up for a distance of 3 feet, enter. And once you have your shape, you can take your offset tool, click, and slowly move in, and we'll do this for 1.5 feet, enter. Orbit around slightly to the side, because when you push pull things like we're about to, you don't want to push pull something while you're looking at it straight on. It's more difficult. Instead, you want to kind of turn to a side and click and move out, and we'll do this for a distance of 2 feet, enter. Now, with your arc tool, kind of turn to the side, and you want to get an arc that comes up, straight up from these edges. And then what we're going to do is, for our path, and again, if you missed that part with the arc tool, you just want to turn it and click once on the side, on another side. And the key part is here is you want to make sure you're moving up along the blue axis and not too high. So once you get that blue axis, it'll tell you it's the blue axis. You can move up, let's say, 7 inches. And now I'm going to select this whole face because I want to use this outer path all the way around. And so if I select the face and then press the Follow Me tool, that's another way I can move it all the way around. Again, all I did was draw my arc. I selected this face and use the Follow Me tool. Orbit it back around to the front. And now one of the methods we used to do this was called additive Follow Me, where we added this material. But that works the opposite way too, where you can take a rectangle, and these sizes are approximate. They don't have to be exactly what I do them, but just keep them close and relative to size and scale. And I'm going to take an arc at the bottom, and I'm going to click and just move up a little bit. Let's then erase these lines so you have a nice profile. You know the profile is good if you click it and it highlights. Okay, once it highlights, you know that it's solid and we can revolve it around. So I'm going to select the top face because again I want to move this all the way around. Use the Follow Me tool to click this shape and move it all the way around. Now you can see there's some kind of for mine I came down a little bit too far, so I'm going to Control Z that, and I'll use a guideline, double click this guideline here, and I know that I can't go below that line, so I'm going to use my arc tool again. But I'll make sure I'm above the line, and this way when I use my follow me tool, you have that nice edge all the way around. Once you are finished with that, you can then go ahead and get your tray out and color it up. Alright, with my third shape colored, I'm going to get a good angle here again. I'm going to press the zoom extents tool so I'm nice and zoomed in, making sure that I could see the hole in this object over here. So you got to turn it a little bit more like that, and then zoom extents. And then let's press File, Export 2D Graphic. And again, you should see the other ones you saved in there labeled correctly. So this will be last name underscore 2.3. Export. And then go through your view, get a front view like this, but you can see we still have that perspective view. So what I want you to do is go to your camera and click parallel projection so you can see straight at them. Click the front tool, zoom extents, and we'll export this last picture as King, last name 2.4. So you should have 3 files for this. The first one looks like this with the first block, which is 2.1, King, or last name tools 2.2, 2 blocks, 2.3, 3 blocks, and the last one, 2.4, is all the blocks like you see here. Go back and make sure you save your work.